But anyway, look what it says. The Vatican had issued what some Jewish scholars are calling an important document that explicitly says, in fact, this was if you see on top, it says, this is the headlines in the New York Times. Vatican says, Vatican, which is the source of Christianity, Jews' wait for Messiah is validated by the Old Testament. In other words, could be this is the right thing.
Oh, thank you so much for
Yeah. So keep reading what it says here. And then it says on the next page, when you turn the other side, so this gives me an understanding what that is all about. It says like this. This again, this big commentator writes like this. He's inspired. He's talking about the Pope, and he has reason to be inspired. But what's dangerous in these apologies, obviously he wrote an apology, seems to be saying that the church itself had been wrong in its teachings, rather that someone in the church made a mistake. In other words, he's not saying that someone made a mistake in teaching things wrong, that the teachings of Christianity themselves, there's something wrong about it, which is exactly almost word for word what the Rambam writes. The Moshiach is going to come, they're going to say that their ancestors erred, they made a mistake. And again, at the last page, it says, he said that this document, which he wrote, is in no way a backtrack. He's not backtracking from the religion, but it does represent a significant shift. So this is one of the things where we see signs of things happening now, or what's going to happen in a more complete way when Mashiach comes. Okay, now we'll go back to the questions, to our review. So we did number 1, we did number 2, and we did number 3, I think, right? So now, yeah. What? Number 4, is it enough to believe in Mashiach, or must a person also hope and anticipate his coming? Right, not just, and we explained in class that if a person says, I believe in Moshiach, but I don't know when it's going to happen, like I can't say that I'm really waiting it's going to happen, usually that means that my belief is not really solid. Number 4. No, there's another thing in number 4. In which parsha of the Torah is Mashiach found? Yes.
In the one, how do we make our belief solid? By learning.
Right. The best way to maybe there would be a belief pill that you can take, and after that you believe that would be easy. Or an injection would also be easy, or certain exercises, but I guess the best way to strengthen Amunah is through learning. Learning the subject of Mashiach and Torah will strengthen the person's Amunah. Yeah. What were you going to say, Shirley?
Which parsha?
Right.
Isn't the one with the cursings?
Yeah, Bilam. Bilam and Balak, right. So the parsha's name is Balak, but it was the prophecy of Bilam in that parsha that's what alludes to Mashiach. Page number 2. Does Mashiach have to perform miracles in order to be identified as Mashiach? No. Do we believe that Mashiach will perform miracles? Yeah. So how do the two things go together? Right. We believe he'll perform miracles, but he doesn't have to perform miracles in order to establish his identity. That's not halachically what he needs to do in order to be recognized as Moshiach. What does he do? We'll do that later. When did Ben Kuziba HaMelech live? What time in history did he live? Right? That's one way of answering the question. He lived in the times of Rabbi Akiva because he was the one that supported him. And when was that? After the Beit HaMikdash, before the Beit HaMikdash, during the Babylonians, during the Romans? Right. This was after the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed by the Romans. That's when this took place. How was it discovered that Ben Kuziba Hamelech is not Mashiach?
He died.
Or being more specific, he was killed. Right. Where were the rabbis wrong to identify Ben Kuziba as Mashiach? Was it a mistake?
No.
So what was it?
To see if they were living on the criteria.
Right, so why wasn't it a mistake?
People weren't ready.
What?
People weren't ready.
People didn't have the we didn't have the merit to have Mashiach then. But doesn't that mean that it was a mistake? They called him Mashiach. So this part, let me chew it over again. This was recognized by Rebbe Akiva. You want to say something? Yeah.
Well, he was like the potential Moshiach. Is that like the answer?
Right. That is considered the novelty of this part of the Rambam, something new that he introduces. That there's a concept where somebody could be recognized as Mashiach according to Torah. But if we don't have the merit, it could be discontinued. It could be aborted. The process is sort of aborted. So therefore, when they identified him as Mashiach, that was correct. They had all the right to do it according to halacha. And he was recognized, but he was called Cheskas Mashiach. That was the first stage. And it's still reversible. And because we didn't merit, it was reversed. So they weren't wrong.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like some controversy around that. Like, where does it come from where people call somebody Mashiach and then people are like, I don't know, say that that's against Torah? You know?
So that's one of the things which we said, that when someone says it's against Torah, my response to them, could you please name me the name of the book and what page it's written in Torah that this is against Torah? There's no such source in Torah. On the contrary, there's so many instances in Torah, in Gemara, where rabbis spoke about who would be Mashiach in their generation. This is one example, and the Rambam brings it in Halacha. And in fact, the next question is related to this. Could the story of Ben Kuziba be used as a reference for the criteria needed to Mashiach? Could we use this story and learn from it how to identify it? The Rambam writes, this is Rambam's words, Mashiach does not have to perform miracles. And how do we know this? Because Rabbi Akiva thought he was Mashiach and he didn't perform miracles. But if the whole thing was a mistake, how could you base anything on the story? They made a mistake. So why couldn't there be more mistakes? So clearly they didn't make a mistake. What they did was halachically acceptable and okay. The fact that he wasn't Mashiach wasn't because of mistake, was because it was reversed. The process was stopped, was discontinued. He had the potential and it was stopped. So therefore, whatever happened in that story is clearly something which the rabbis of the generation did, and therefore we can base on it what halacha we have to do. So, for example, Ariella, this story itself says that Rabbi Akiva referred to someone as Mashiach. Like there's another thing which we'll learn about later. I remember someone who said this, that you can't refer to someone to Mashiach until Eliyahu Navi comes first and he announces it. In this story, Eliyahu Navi didn't announce it. Had he announced it, it would have been a whole different. It just says the rabbi said it. It had nothing to do with Eliyahu Navi. So therefore, a lot of people have certain feelings about things, but it's not based on Torah sources. That's why it's so important to learn the Torah sources. If there is a source in Torah, then we have to look into it and see, is it something which is in halacha? Is it a metaphor? But of course, it has to be based on Torah. So again, I'll tell you where it comes from, because there were people who were identified as Mashiach, like Shabtai Tzvi, turned out to be false, and false alarm, and it created a lot of problems. There was another group called the Frankisten in a different time in history. And of course, Christianity itself is a false Mashiach. So therefore, people say you're not allowed to identify someone as Mashiach, but there's no such thing in Torah. Those people were false, But if everything is correct and everything is consistent with the Torah criteria, then you could identify someone as Mashiach. There's actually a certain sefer called Snei Chemed. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's one of the few Torah encyclopedias. It was written by a very great Sephardi tzaddik who lived in Israel maybe about 100 years ago. And it's an incredible piece of work because in those days there was no computers and there was no thing. And he has hundreds and thousands of different Sfarim. The knowledge that he demonstrates there is like vast. Anyway, so it's an encyclopedia of every subject in Torah. So when he talks about the subject of Mashiach, he says that in every generation, people speculated who would be Mashiach in this generation. So to say that you're not allowed to speculate, there's no basis for that. Okay, page number 3. Did Ben Koziba live in a time when there were Jewish kings?
No.
Right, he did not live in a time. When the temple was destroyed, especially the second base of there were no kings anymore. But yet the Rambam calls him Ben Koziba HaMelech. So we see from this that the term king, that's another question people raise. This person who's going to be Mashiach, does he first have to be a king? Because the Rambam writes, a king will arise. So it doesn't mean literally a king with all the halachic ramifications of king. Because in those days there was also no king. It means a leader. It means a leader of Jewry. And Ben Koziba at that time was a leader of Jewry. Is it acceptable to say that Mashiach will declare certain mitzvahs obsolete? No, that's against Torah. Is it acceptable to say that Mashiach will declare certain mitzvahs no longer relevant in a literal way, but will continue to take on meaning in a metaphoric way? No. Remember, said the first one is Christianity. They said that God changed the plan and now it's no longer relevant. The second one is Islam, where they said that the Torah is interpreted in some sort of a metaphoric way, and they're both against Torah. So that anyone who says that would be a false Mashiach, and that's one of the ways, the main way that we know whether this is the right person or not. Now it's halacha 4 in the Rambam. What are the criteria to identify Mashiach? I wrote down 4 things: A, B, C, D. What would you say are the 4 things? First of all, Ben David. Oh, I wanted to show you something. I brought it with me. I think I brought it with me. Well, I thought I brought it with me. No, I left it on my desk. Okay, now I wanted to show you. Remember we asked the question, so how could you know today, so many thousands of years later, that Mashiach is a descendant of King David? So I wanted to show you a sefer that he did. Oh, I did bring it. Here, this is a person did research. He has a list of every single name of every single person who was a descendant of a descendant of a descendant, all the way back to King David, and all the way back to Adam Rishon.
Doesn't matter if it's from the mother to the father.
It doesn't matter, right? Most of the names, it's interesting, they were all leaders and tzaddikim, and talking about generations and generations, but they were all either kings or leaders or tzaddikim, each one of their generation.
The Rebbe was from the mother.
The Rebbe is from the mother, yeah. What?
Can I see that?
This? Yeah.
Yeah.
Here for class, you can have it. We'll make copies if you want.
Also, what's the difference between Moshiach and Yosef versus Moshiach and David?
Oh, you asked me that question. I forgot this answer. Did you ask me that question? Yeah. If you read anywhere, you hear anything about Mashiach ben Yosef, what does that mean? So first of all, you know that the Jewish nation was divided for a long period of time into 2 kingdoms. One was a kingdom that were descendants of King David, and the other they were from the tribe of Yosef. In fact, the 10 tribes that you always hear about, their kings were all from the tribe of Joseph. Unfortunately, most of them were corrupt and they weren't okay, and they ended up going to Gullus, and that's why we don't know where they are, because they were lost before before our Golas began, and they're somewhere mixed in amongst the nations of the world, according to one opinion. But there's places where it talks about the fact that there'll be two people. One will be a descendant from the tribe of Yosef. One will be descended from the tribe of King David. And Mashiach ben Yosef, this one who's also Mashiach, he'll come first. But he won't succeed in bringing Geula, but he'll prepare the way. And then will come the second one, he'll be descendant of King David. The reason why we don't talk about it in class is because we just learned the Rambam, and in the Rambam there's no mention of Mashiach ben Yosef. Where do we find it? You find it in Gemara, you find it in Midrashim. That means as far as halacha is concerned, we don't halachically, it's not relevant identifying Mashiach ben Yosef. All we need to know is about Mashiach, who is a descendant of King David. So what about Mashiach ben Yosef? If you start looking into the sources, you find a lot of different opinions what this means. In fact, there's one opinion that says that it doesn't even mean two different people. It means that Mashiach himself is a part of his soul that's connected to the tribe of Yosef. And then physically, biologically, he's a descendant of King David. That means that they're all different opinions what it means, but practically what's relevant at halacha level is just Mashiach ben David.
Could it also be, since you said it doesn't matter if they're descendants of King David through the mother or father, that they're also descendants of Yosef from like the other parent?
I would imagine so, yeah.
That could also be a way that it could be like both.
Right.
But there is no criteria that we have.
Right. Not definitely not in halacha. The Rambam doesn't even mention it in halacha. That it's, in other words, to say Mashiach ben David can't come first before Mashiach ben Yosef comes. There's no such concept. So all we need to know as far as halacha is concerned is who is going to be Mashiach ben David. But that's what it means, a descendant of King David or a descendant of the tribe of Yosef. So what are the four things? Let's see. A, he has to be from King David. B,
a scholar in Torah.
He has to be a tzaddik who studies Torah and observes mitzvahs properly. C, right? He tries to bring all the Jews to Torah and mitzvahs. And the fourth one is? No.
Bring all the Jews to Yerushalayim.
That's also true, but that's on the second one. You'll soon see the next one. He brings all the Yidden around the world to Yerushalayim is also in the second one. What's the fourth? What? He fights the wars of Hashem. So we explained what that means, that the number C is the positive. He brings all the Jews to Torah and to mitzvahs. And the fourth one is he'll also fight any force that opposes Torah and mitzvahs, whether it's physically or spiritually, movements and things like that fight Torah and mitzvahs. And that's called the Cheskas Mashiach. That's that stage that still could fall apart. What is the second stage? Mashiach Vadai. These four things happen, and then come three more things. Number one was that everything that he did will continue to succeed, wouldn't fail. Number two is that he builds the Beis Hamikdash in its place. And number three is that he brings all the Jews to be in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe did say that the fact that we see today hundreds of thousands of Jews coming to live in Israel and something which we haven't seen in 2,000 years, so the Rebbe said it's definitely part of the process of this happening, but it's still not complete. Of course, there's still millions of Jews living outside of Israel. But when Mashiach will reach that stage, it means that all the Jews will come to Eretz Yisrael. Number three, if the person builds Beis Hamikdash but not in its original place, is it still valid? No. Even if he builds it with all the details and all the halachas perfectly, but if the place is not the same place, then it's not the Beis Hamikdash that we were promised. Page 4. Does Mashiach's Torah knowledge have to be evaluated and proved broad that he's the greatest Torah scholar than all the other Torah scholars in the generation? No, you didn't see that in the Rambam. So this is also, I'm pointing this out because people say, if you speculate someone's Mashiach, you're immediately embarrassing or insulting or offending all other Torah leaders. No, we're not measuring. We're looking to see whether this criteria fits this person. We're not saying that this person knows more Torah, is more righteous. We just know that this one fits the criteria, that one doesn't. In fact, it could be a person that has more knowledge in Torah, but he's not a descendant of King David. He can't be Mashiach. So we see that the Rambam doesn't write anywhere that you have to line up all the Torah scholars and say, okay, whoever knows the most Torah, he's the one. Again, all this is designated by Hashem, but Hashem gave us certain ways of identifying who that person is. Yeah, real.
It would be a little, what's the opposite of humble? I guess arrogant. Like if you're going to be comparing, like this one knows more than that one, and that's why it's Mashiach. Like it's like
arrogant from whose end?
I think just like the concepts and like that action is arrogant. Like for whoever like wants to put people on a pedestal and compare, and I guess maybe the person who's asking that question, because it's not about that. Like it's just so not about that. And like Mashiach would never be like, oh, I know more than this person. Like one of the things he has to be humble also.
Right. That's not a whatever it is. Exactly. So that's what is it. It's just that he has this criteria. That's all. It's almost like saying that Hashem put a sign on the person that he's Moshiach. What's the sign? It's not a piece of paper. The sign is these 4 things, which is the criteria. That's all. That's what we're looking for. Now, some people say that if Mashiach says that he's Mashiach, that's arrogant. Is it?
It depends on how he says it.
What?
It depends on how he would say it.
Well, the question is, if that's the case, he could never, ever arrive, you know. Like, what do you think is going to happen when Mashiach comes? He's going to get up there and say, I have something to tell you. What? I don't know how to say this. I don't know. I am not comfortable. I don't know. What are you saying? I can't say it. You want to say you're Mashiach? No, I can't say that. How is he going to do his job? Why can't we learn from a precedent to this is Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Jews. What did he say? Hashem sent me and he told me to take you out of Golus. It's not arrogant, meaning it's like somebody would say, I'm a Kohen. Oh, so arrogant. It's a fact. I was born to a father that's a Kohen. And same with Mashiach. The arrogance is when you attribute greatness to your ego. But if you're saying, if Hashem chose me to do this, and I say, this is my mission, this is what I need to do, it's, of course, you don't look down at anyone because of it, but the mere fact that this person will one day come and say, I was sent by Hashem to take you out of Golus, is not going to be arrogance. That's going to be his mission that he needs to do. Right, but definitely from our end, to say one is greater than the other, that would be arrogant, because who are we to measure who's greater? And that's why we don't have to measure who's greater. We just have to know who fits this description. I think number 4 and 5 is the same. I don't know what the difference is. Can Mashiach be a heavenly entity such as an angel or something similar?
No.
Why not?
Because it needs to be a flesh and blood.
He has to be descendant of King David. This means he's a human being who was born as a baby like everybody else, and he grew up and he has a mother and a father, and his mother and father are children of another mother and father and go back to King David. So to believe that Mashiach is something spiritual, because people think of Mashiach as so phenomenal, can't be like a regular human being. But no, that's what Mashiach is. Who do you think Moshe Rabbeinu was? He was also a human being, and he had a mother and a father, even though their names, the father's name was Amram, The mother's name was Yocheved. He was even a little baby. They put him into a basket. They put the basket into the water. So all the greatest leaders of Jewry were human beings, little babies, and they were human as we are. Okay, number 7. And I asked, how can we track someone's lineage to David HaMelech, who lived almost 300,000 years ago? So this is really the answer. Remember what I said? How would you know? Okay, I have this list. But how would somebody know such a thing?
They trace themselves back into somebody like more contemporary.
Right.
Who knows that they're descendants.
There are great Torah scholars like Rambam or Rashi or others that they said about themselves that they're a descendant of King David. So we know that that's valid. So anyone that knows that they're descendants just a few generations back to that great sage, then automatically you know that they're descendants of King David. Is it okay to identify someone as Moshiach before he builds the Beis Hamikdash and changes the world?
Yes.
How do we know?
Yeah, because it's the second stage.
But we're saying, is it okay to identify him before the second stage?
Oh, because they did it with Ben Kuziba.
Right, that's what Rabbi Akiva did with Ben Koziba. So we know that it's okay. That's the proper thing to do. And number 9 is, when is Mashiach considered Becheskes Mashiach? That's the first stage. Now we did this already. It's before he built the Beis Hamikdash and before he brought all the Jews together. And after he does that, it's considered Vadai Mashiach. Vadai meaning to say that it's certain and it's irreversible.
Only after Bnei Bet HaMikdash?
What? After he builds the Beis Hamikdash and he brings all the Yidden to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so now, not now the second, but we're going to continue and learn the next chapter, which is chapter 12 in the Rambam. The difference between chapter 11 and chapter 12 is chapter 11 was focusing on the person. That there is a person, what's the criteria to the person, what is the person supposed to accomplish, and things like that. Chapter 12 is going to talk about not so much the person, but more the error. What's going to happen in that time? How are things going to change? What's going to be the order of things? What's going to happen first? What's going to happen later? How will it affect Jews? How will it affect non-Jews? So we're talking more about what's going to be in the time rather than talking about the person that's going to lead them to Geula. And that's the difference between chapter 11 and chapter 12. And Amir Hashem, next week, when we have our class, we'll start with chapter 12. Okay. Have a great Shabbos, everybody. Thank you very much. And all the brachas again, and thank you for all the gifts and the creative cupcakes, which I will study for sure over the weekend.
We're gonna give you a quiz on Monday.
Oh, no.
Different commentaries.
That's a good, actually, that's a good project. I'll come back on Monday with a analysis of all the designs. Okay.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi Majeski. Good Shabbos.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
very good. Let's say he's a scholar. True. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. I have something to say too.
Yeah.
I will tell you that kid will have amazing second.
Would we finish it? It's fine.
Only
Because we 4 o'clock. We're lighting candles at like 4:30.
Oh, right, what are we doing? You want to bring the flowers?
Yeah. Maybe we should take over because she was far. Yeah. Yeah, we take it.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys. Hi, guys. Welcome back.
Hi,
to the
guys,
channel.
welcome back.
Wait, what? Oh, we can
First
see
day,
you,
right? My sentence? Is it
Wait,
correct?
say it again. Oh, it's all like that. Yeah, so sorry. לאכול? לאכול? Why? What's it? אוכל it's food. Oh, לאכול is like to do it, to eat. לאכול. לאכול.
Oh yeah, that was in my vocabulary list.
There you go.
ללכת לאכול.
What did you learn in school class?
Like, I'm so proud of
We
you.
learned
I
a
have to
lot.
translate from a higher source than
Yes.
I know, but I want to. It's recording. I have one. Hi guys, look at my picture.
Julie, you're still.
How do you say hungry? What happened? I wrote. What did you wrote?
What happened to the
Because we learned in
idea?
the Shama. We found like, okay, that you, the shop here is silent up there, right? But here,
Yeah.
with the two.
We get an actual aliyah when we come down to this world.
You
Yeah.
can actually elevate things after, okay, it's like really close to Hashem and everything, like, it's life.
But there, we're just there.
But
Here, we're doing stuff.
mission, because it can't, it
Indeed.
possible.
Yes, my love. When when you read the Chumash and you finish is it a parak? When it's
Siyum.
No, you finish the parak. Is it like short?
Okay,
The pasuk is
Yeah,
a
there.
it's a
Parak is a
chapter,
long one?
and the